Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our webinar this evening, Kid Approved, with Tina Childress. Before we get started, Tina, I just want to thank real quick our captioner tonight, Daryl Morrell from Alternative Communication Services. Thank you so much, Daryl. I appreciate you being here tonight with us. Many of you have seen Tina in action before at our conventions. She's one of our very favorite and popular presenters. She's an educational audiologist and a tech wizard. She knows everything tech, and she's always very impressive. So I know she has a lot of information to get through tonight. I'm going to go ahead and let you get started, Tina. We'll take questions at the end, and if everybody would just do me the favor of typing your question in the chat box, and I will voice the question to Tina at the end so that it becomes part of our transcript. Right, the chat box is at the bottom. So without further ado, welcome, Tina, and thank you very much for presenting tonight.
Thanks so much, Nancy. It's always a great pleasure to be able to do something for HLAA. It is definitely a group that I believe in and I wholeheartedly support. So, hi everyone. Thanks so much for taking the time to spend an hour with me tonight during your summer. As Nancy mentioned, my name is Tina Childress. I live in Champaign, Illinois, which is about 2.5 hours south of the state of Chicago. I am also, in addition to being an audiologist, I'm like many of you, I am a late deafened adult. I have bilateral cochlear implants, and I really do love technology. A lot of friends call me Tiki Tina, but for presentations like tonight, I'm also known as the App Queen. So just a little bit of an overview for tonight. The topics are going to be related to how to use tablets and iPhones and touch technology with our students that have hearing loss. A lot of these concepts can also be used with adults. So, you know, I was also brainstorming with Nancy, and it's looking better and better with different platforms that we're going to do a part 2, which will be really exciting. And in part 2, I really hope to go more in depth, actually showing you the apps. That's not possible tonight just because of limitations of the technology, but you'll get a good sense of where I'm going with this. So, I mean, even when I think about apps, I think about them in terms of being another tool in our toolbox. They are in no way, shape, or form intended to replace a clinician, replace a parent, or act as an electronic babysitter. But, you know, I want to leverage this attractiveness to this technology, and, you know, it can motivate our children in therapy. It can provide them with access in situations where maybe their hearing loss is a barrier. So that's my framework for presenting what I do, and I hope that I'm able to provide you with resources that you can start using right away. So I'm going to start out talking about some of the accessibility features that we find in the devices I'm going to be talking about. I should also mention that the focus of this presentation are going to be on apps that work on the Apple platform, so iPads, iPhones, iPod Touch. I know over the years people have asked me about Android, so just hang with me for a little bit. I have some exciting news to share about that. But the focus of this, I'm going to start out talking more about accessibility for Apple devices because that's what we usually see in the schools. Okay, this is the web page to the Apple accessibility information. They keep changing it, and I'm finding it harder and harder to find information. So I'm going to break it down in ways that kind of make sense to me. So the first feature that is really great and that many of us love and what I'm using, you know, almost every day is having these front-facing cameras. We find them on all the iPads except the very, very first generation iPad. It allows us to do things like FaceTime and maybe use apps like Skype or OOVOO, OOVOO, apps like that with the front-facing camera. It's great for lip reading. I love talking on my iPad to my mom, who is very much in denial about her own hearing loss, and she also has a problem not looking at the camera, so she's often looking like this and not looking at the camera. But at least I can see her face and she can see my face for lip reading. For those of us that use sign language and might use a video relay service, it's so nice to just be able to pull our phone out of our pocket or pull up our iPad in the coffee shop and make a quick phone call or have a sign language conversation with our friends. In the field of audiology, we are seeing the use of things like iPads, especially, and also computers with web cameras, in things like telehealth. So this would be for maybe clinicians that might be 3 or 4 or 13 hours away from their client, but they're able to conduct therapy remotely with the family on one side and with the clinician on the other side. In terms of audiology, you know, sometimes audiologists can program hearing aids. They're looking at cochlear implants, so there's a lot of things happening in telehealth right now. I would say probably almost 100% of the video content that we have now on the iTunes store is accessible with closed captioning. I think they got sued and they had to do that because back in the day, maybe even as recent as 5 years ago, I know there was still quite a bit of content that was not captioned. One thing that is disappointing is that the previews and trailers are still not captioned, but most of the shows and the movies are, so that's always great. Like, I just came from working out with my daughter, and it was so great just being able to watch a movie. My ears were off, and I was able to enjoy it with closed captioning. So some of you, and also maybe some of the students that you work with, what happens if they are only able to hear out of one ear? So if you have true stereo headphones, meaning a separate channel, right channel, left channel, a situation like this would be if they have maybe music and instrumentals on one ear, but on the other ear are the lyrics. Well, if you can only hear out of one ear, then you're not going to get the information that you need. So there is a setting in your phone and on your iPad called mono audio, and it takes both of these channels and it puts it together, and it can send it to the left ear or it can send it to the right ear. So this is good for people that have unilateral hearing loss, or maybe they only wear one hearing aid or one cochlear implant. I know also that bikers, like bicyclists, like to use this because then they hear sound on one side, but they're still able to be aware of the environment on the other side. In terms of notifications, it's so great. You know, there's banners and badges, and if you're on your phone, you have vibration. There's lights that can flash. So I'm not a big fan of using the ringtone because I often don't hear the ringtone, but I do appreciate, you know, my screen lighting up or the banner showing up. Another really great feature that you can use with your students is Siri. Siri is really great for motivation for our students in terms of articulation. Think about it. Have your student ask Siri, hey Siri, you know, what's the weather today? And see if Siri is able to understand your student. The motivation factor in that is really great because if Siri can't understand what you're saying, then you can work on those sounds. And even within Siri, you can see exactly what Siri heard. So I know a lot of speech pathologists that like to use Siri to kind of give the student feedback on their own articulation. Even if you have a student that is using an AAC, which stands for Alternative and Augmentative Communication Device. So this would be a device maybe that has symbols and will give voice output. I know some speech therapists that will use the AAC device to talk to Siri and then see if Siri is able to understand them. So that's always great. So where do you find these features? I provided the slides to Nancy, and so you should be able to see them in PDF form. So I know on your screen it may look very, very small, but hopefully you can blow it up when you're outside of the presentation. And so it's found under the general settings file. And so here, let me get my pointer. So here is where you will see accessibility under general. And then if you scroll some more, it's more down the page, you will see some more of the hearing functions, including, I just always have closed captions turned on by default. And so that's just a nice feature that anytime a YouTube video comes on or you're watching a movie, that it just automatically turns on. And Nancy just wrote that the PDF of the slides will be posted along with the recording, so you can follow along. So that'll be great. Thank you, Nancy. Okay. So did you also know that if you use iMessage, that you can make the iMessages more noticeable by actually customizing your vibration patterns. So what this slide shows are kind of screenshots of where you need to go to customize the LED as well as vibrations. I also want to point out that on the handouts, down at the bottom are some web links to the information that I'm presenting on. So if this doesn't give you enough information, just these screenshots, go to this link below and it will take you to more information. Okay, so I also wanted to talk about advantages and concerns. You know, there's been a lot of people that think that, you know, iDevices, and when I say iDevices, that stands for iPad, iPad mini, iPhone, iPod Touch, that think that it's the best thing ever. And there are some people that just, they think that it's evil, you know, that it's going to make kids into robots and all of that. And so I wanted to definitely acknowledge some of these, the advantages of touch technology as well as some of the concerns. So some of the advantages, we know that it's portable. I think I actually pick out every purse that I own based on whether or not my iPad can fit in it. So if my iPad can fit in it, then it's definitely big enough. We like things that are easy to manipulate. For people that have dexterity issues, when we think about our kids that are, you know, working on fine motor skills, there are a lot of things that are a lot easier. We know that it's stimulating. This is why it's so attractive to many of us. I don't think I can stand in the line at the grocery store without whipping out my phone and checking email or Facebook or something like that. So that's definitely, you know, use that to our advantage. There are many apps to choose from. At this point, there's probably approaching 1.5 million, that's with an M, apps. There have been about 1 billion, with a B, songs that have been downloaded. And so we know that the app stores are just huge. So, you know, we have a lot of things to choose from. The accessories are really popular. So I remember when I got my first iPad, I had to be very, I was very careful with my equipment because if I needed to order anything, I had to go to the Apple store. So I remember at one point something happened to my charging cable. I had to go to the Apple store. Well, nowadays we can find charging cables, we can find chargers at the grocery store or in line at the gas station or at Walgreens. Now I have to kind of preface this with you get what you pay for. So if you are paying $1.99 for a cable, it is probably not going to be as regulated or have the same kind of quality inspection as a cable that might cost about $15 or $20. So that's kind of my gauge for knowing that if a cable is a good cable or not. Unfortunately, it's based on price, not even based on what it looks like, because you can find these cables that look fantastic and they're only $2, but you get what you pay for. Now, the danger in using some of these accessories that are inexpensive is that they can overheat. They can kind of mess up the battery on your devices. So kind of think about that. Oh, I know that I wanted to tell you, I was just at TJ Maxx. If you guys want cables for anything, go to TJ Maxx because they have a lot of things on sale. I know they do that too with Marshalls. So those are like $20 cables that they're selling for maybe $7 or $8. So that's a good place to go. Okay, moving on. Other advantages is, you know, this is what we're seeing in the schools. This is especially what we see in special education, which is why I'm focusing on that with these presentations. You know, it's kind of scary. There are some schools that they don't even give out textbooks anymore. Everything is on an iPad in PDF form, and that's how students are accessing their information. So if we are able to get them ready with that by helping them learn about, you know, like an iPad better, that's a great thing. If you have a student that has dual sensory loss, so maybe they have vision impairment in addition to hearing loss, there are very great features on the iPad that can compensate for having the vision impairment and make things easier to read. And then, of course, it is multimodal. You know, we are able to hear, we're able to see, and we're able to touch stuff, you know, through the screen. And that's what keeps us engaged. So one big concern, and this is definitely a concern that I see as an audiologist, is that people, and especially children, are using these iDevices at unsafe levels and for longer periods during the day. I remember I was taking the train in Chicago. I was at my parents' house, which was a little bit up north, and taking it into the city. And there were maybe 3 people that did not have something in their ears. And it was an almost full car. And so we just see that that's just kind of society nowadays, is that they're always plugged in. So I made this chart based on the information from this PDF down below. And it talks about when you look at the volume control, if you're wearing if you have the volume control full on, you should only be wearing your device for maybe 3 to 5 minutes if you have anything that goes into the ear. Okay? Now, if you're wearing headphones, it's about 18 minutes, and that's because it sits out, you know, outside of your ear. It's not deep down in the ear canal. But we are seeing more children with hearing loss. And we're seeing that because we know that they're listening to music at unsafe levels. So please be aware of that with your students. Okay. Did you know that you can manually set the output limit on your iPad? So again, the link for step-by-step is down here. So what you're going to do is you're going to go into your music file, and then you have music, you have volume limit, and then here there's a slider. The default, and I don't know why the default is all the way over here, is at max. If you make it in the middle, it won't let your it will not let your volume get to unsafe levels no matter how loud they turn up the volume. So you're going to be manually limiting the output here. And then this window, what this shows is how to block students or your kids out of this, so that you have to enter in a code in order to change the setting. Okay. Now, there are also just output limiting devices. So these are headphones or earbuds that kids can wear, that it doesn't matter how loud they turn up the volume, it's never going to exceed 85 decibels, which is still a relatively safe level. It's when you get over 85 decibels that you need to start worrying about excessive noise. Okay, so these have just built-in output limiting built into it. I'm going to talk now about some of the newer accessories that are available that can be used to listen to your devices. So the first thing that I wanted to highlight is this neck loop by a company called Clear Sounds, and it's called Quattro 4.0. And I guess I should give out a disclaimer that some of the equipment that I'll be showing, first of all, it's equipment that I've tried or I own, and some of it, the manufacturers have actually sent it to me because I said, hey, if you ever want someone to demo your equipment, I've used it, I loved it, I'll be happy to talk about it. So this is an example of that. And so what this is an amplified Bluetooth neck loop. So the way that this works is, well, first of all, these two pieces actually fit together. Okay, so if you were to look at it from the side, it would look kind of like a big Oreo. And so this connects, let's pretend over here on the left is what I want to listen to, my phone or my iPad or whatever. Well, this device talks to this neck loop via Bluetooth. And then this device sends the signal up to my cochlear implants via the telecoil function. So I can listen to my phone, I can listen to audiobooks. Now, this thing that's separated out here, what this is actually a removable microphone. And so let's take this and pretend it's over here. Well, this microphone will talk via Bluetooth to this, so I can give this to my kids in the back seat if I'm having a hard time hearing them, and I can listen to them. So it's kind of like a poor man's FM system. The microphone is not as great as an FM or a Roger system, but it can do in a pinch. So many of you have students, or maybe yourselves, that you have accessories called streamers that now come with your devices. So again, if let's say this is the device you want to hear here at the top, so this communicates to the different streamers via Bluetooth. And then it sends the signal wirelessly up to your hearing aids or to your cochlear implants or to the students. And so streamers are, like another piece in terms of technology. And if you're not really comfortable with how to connect streamers to your students' technology, definitely consult either their pediatric audiologist, or if they are school age, talk to their educational audiologist if there's one that's available. So sometimes our students like to just directly plug into something. I know this for some students that take state testing on a computer, or maybe they're listening to music. And so if you have a hearing aid, there are different what we call audio shoes or battery doors that can be at the bottom of your hearing aid. And you can see here there's 3 little plugs. So these plugs plug into the 3 holes, and then this end plugs into the headphone jack of what you're listening to. So you are hardwired to what you're listening to, but that means that you are less likely to have interference or problems with a telecoil. If you want to listen to what your student is listening to, you could get a Y splitter. So this end here to the left plugs into the headphone jack. You can plug in their cable here. You can plug in your headphones over here. So that's a really great feature. Now, if you have a student that has cochlear implants and they want to plug into something, you have to be especially careful with cochlear implant kids because if there was a power surge in the building and you're listening to, let's say you're listening to something on a desktop computer that's plugged into the wall, that power surge can travel through the wall, through the cable, through the power strip that you have connected to your computer, and then up the cable, and it can actually sometimes mess up the programming on your kid's cochlear implant. So the safest thing to do would be to only plug into things that are battery operated, or to talk to your cochlear implant manufacturer and see if they have a proprietary cable that has a surge protector in the middle of it to prevent that from happening. And as of right now, I think that Cochlear and Medel are the two companies that have those proprietary cables. Okay. My favorite headphones are by this company called Able Planet. I like it because first of all, they say that their headphones are made for people with hearing loss, and having listened to a bunch of headphones, I think they sound really good. I also like the fact that their cord that plugs, that connects the headphones to the, whatever you're listening to, can unplug. So you're not going to ruin your headphones because you sat on your cable. It will just actually unplug. Okay. The other thing to look for in headphones, if you can see here in this picture, you want that cup. You want that cup because it sits off the ear, which means you're less likely to have feedback from hearing aids especially. And also it does a really good job with isolating sound, so blocking out the external noise and funneling the sound more towards your ear. So these are this is the style that I like. This is a device called the Hurom, and the way that this works is it looks like a phone. So this connects via Bluetooth to your cellular phone. And so let's say I am using an app where I have captions on my mobile phone. Well, if I have that on, then it has to go through speakerphone, because I can't listen and read my captioning, so the default is to go to speakerphone. Well, if you have this device, I can actually hold this to my ear and read my captioning, and it's going to be private. So it does a great job amplifying. There's a T-clock function. You can actually put it in the visor of your car, and the sound will be really nice and loud for you when you're driving. Now, for those of you that might use your cell phone as an alarm clock, or if you know students that are doing that, that's fine, but please, please do not put it under your pillow or in your pajamas, especially if you're charging it also, because the phones can get really hot. There have been, instances where pillows catch on fire, and if you're buying one of those cheap cables for $2 at the gas station, it just may kind of make your phone get really hot. And so there are devices like this cradle that you stick your phone in it, and it picks up the vibration pattern that you set, and then this will light up, but there's also a bed shaker attachment, and you can also plug your phone in and charge it overnight. So this is my favorite device for that. And of course, we have wearable technology like what I have as well. And I really love being able to just really quickly know that a text or an email came in, look at it really quickly. Not so much for the kids, but we are seeing it for adults where you can actually control your hearing aids. And I'm sure soon cochlear implants using apps on your watches. Okay. So now I'm going to give you some tips for purchasing apps. So, when you have a million apps on a web store, it can get a little bit overwhelming. So I'm going to talk to you guys here in a little bit about my app list, in case you don't know about it, where I've really narrowed kind of down the field. And, you want to think about your goal. What are you trying to accomplish? What kind of skill are you going to be working on? You want to, when you review an app, you really do want to see kind of screenshots of what the apps look like, because, you know, sometimes just looking at the logo or hearing about the app is not the same as actually seeing what you might see on the screen. For your little ones that are using apps, you want to make sure that there's not too much fine motor things that they can or cannot, or that they cannot do. So if you're working with a 4-year-old and they're working on fine motor skills, well, you don't want a whole lot of pinching and scrunching unless that's something that you're working on in therapy and you know they can do that. When working with kids also, these apps that have built-in record keeping are fantastic. They can track the correct or incorrect responses, create a graph, and then you can email it. In terms of price, so there are great apps that are free, and there are great apps that are not free, as well as good or bad apps that are free and bad apps that are not free. So the price is not always going to be indicative of the quality of apps. There are some fantastic apps that are out there for sure that are free. And then the last thing that I want to tell you about, there are apps that are out there that I would call genuine, like they're doing what they're saying that they're doing, and then there are some that are gimmicky. And so I would say that probably, hey Sue, I will tell you where the app list is in just a few slides. Okay, so in terms of genuine versus gimmicky, apps that do things like say that they're spying devices, there's this whole thing right now with over-the-counter hearing aids that I know that a lot of people within HLAA have pushed for. There are some apps out there also that pretend to act like hearing aids, and they're not safe. And I'll talk about that in a little bit. So you have to be careful of them. There are also apps that are out there that measure like how loud the environment is, and many of them are not accurate. And so I'll also talk about that. All right, some other things to remember. Once you buy an app, it's yours. So even if you don't have it on the screen of your device, it will always be in your iTunes store. Did you know that one Apple ID can be shared with up to 10 devices, of which 5 are computers? So and things have changed too. There are family share plans and things like that. So gone are the days where one app is on one iPad and then you have to buy it for another iPad or the iPhone. You can use similar Apple IDs or use family sharing. So in preparation for this presentation, I actually kind of went through my whole entire app list and kind of got rid of a bunch of apps because they were no longer available. So just know that I may talk about an app tonight, or it may be on my app list, but then you go to it in a couple of days or share it with a friend and it's no longer there. That's just kind of what happens every day. Apps are being retired and apps are being developed every day. Now, if you are one of those people that when you look on your screen and if you have the little medallion that says like 56 because you haven't updated your apps, please do so. And the same goes for your operating system, because if you don't update your apps or your operating system, the apps may not work correctly. So be sure to update that, and I do mine at least weekly, if not more. Okay. So another thing that people sometimes run into is they run out of memory. Did you know that there are now memory sticks, like thumb drives, that you can use for iPhones and for iPads? Now, the only things that can be loaded onto these sticks or these memory devices are media. And when I say media, that means pictures, videos, or documents like PDFs or Microsoft Word or something like that. You cannot put an app on one of these storage devices, but let's say you take a lot of pictures of your students or you take a lot of videos, but it's eating up at the memory of your device. If you get one of these memory sticks, then it can help you save memory, and then you don't have to upgrade so much. Recently, I think I was at Sam's Club, and I think I saw one for like 32 gigabyte of storage for like $100. So, you know, we know with technology, the prices are going to keep going down, but this is a nice option to have instead of having to buy a brand new device because you keep running out of memory. Okay, some places to go shopping for apps. So my favorite places are here at iTunes, Google Alerts. So, you know, every once in a while I'll go to iTunes and just do a quick search, and you see the terms up there. I also set up Google Alerts, so if any of these words show up on the web, like when an app is being developed, the developer will often put out some kind of press release. And so that's how I find out about a lot of apps, is because I get an email through Google Alerts. Another thing to think about, and there are other services like this, so with App Shopper, you sign up, get an account for free, and what you do is if there's an app that you want, but you don't want to pay the price that they're asking for, put that app on App Shopper, and if it goes down in price or it becomes free, and you can set your alerts however you want, you will get an email. So it's kind of a nice wish list and just kind of reminds you of things that you're looking at. So Sue, I don't have time to go into depth about how to set up a Google Alert, but there are lots of tutorials online that can show you how to do that. Okay, you're welcome. And so Facebook is another favorite place for me to find apps. There's a lot of just Facebook pages. All they do is evaluate special education apps. And, you know, they have different events where they give things away. It seems like a lot of apps go on free or on sale on Fridays. So, you know, check out some of these Facebook pages that I'll talk about in a minute. And also, you know, just check them out on Friday. There are certain times of the year also where speech, language, and hearing apps go on sale. April and May is Better Hearing and Speech Month, and October and November is right before our national conference, and so a lot of the developers like to put their apps on sale. And then, of course, you know, there's different blogs and websites. You know, my favorite thing to do also is if I'm questioning whether or not this app is going to be good or not, I will go to YouTube and I will see if I can see a video of the app, you know, just kind of in action. And so a lot of these developers also have YouTube channels, so you can see kind of what the app looks like, you know, being used. Okay, now I'm going to talk about my app list. So you can find the app list here at this website. And I don't know what it is about me. I have this need to collect information, organize it, create a chart, and then just share it with the world. That's just something I like to do. And so I started doing this back in 2011 when the first apps started coming out. And so when you go to this list, you will see these different categories. And I will go more in depth into these different categories and also what a page might look like. Okay, so you're just going to go to this website up here and you will see the different categories. I want to let you know, you guys are the first to hear this officially, that this app list is also finally going to come out in Android. People have been asking about this forever, and I will get the website to Nancy so that she can send it out to people as well. Okay, so if you go to one of the categories, you're going to see a page that looks like this. And so let me change my pointer. So the first thing that you're going to see is the logo. And then also here is the title of the app, and you can see that it's blue. When you click on it, it sends you right to the iTunes page, so you guys don't even need to hunt it down. And then you will see the cost, and understand that this cost changes. And so that's just what it was when I looked at it. There will be a short description, either because I have the app, or if I don't have the app, then I will use it from the iTunes store. And then you will also see what category it's in. So this one is for audiology, hearing test, and listening therapy. So this app can be used a multitude of different ways. And then I also put the company website on here, because if you're having a problem with the app, then I just put the contact information for you there, just to be easy. And then this last column is really important. It is the date I added it to the list. So what I do is I put the most recent app at the top. So you can look at the date and you could say, I haven't checked Tina's app list in 6 months. What kinds of things has she put on her app list? And you can look for the past 6 months and see what's happening with the most recent being on top. The other thing that I recently did also when I was going through my list is I highlighted my favorite apps. So if you don't want to go through all of them and you just want to see what are kind of the highlights, well, I highlighted that for you. So that's what one of those pages might look like. Okay, so the first category is accessibility. And here you will find apps that will do things like do voice to text and or text to voice. So, Google Translate, which is this icon here, is an example of that. I can talk into my phone and the text will print out. So that's kind of a nice feature for people that are having a hard time listening. That's just one example. There's a whole bunch of them that are on there. I also have information about, using your phone as a visual alert. It listens to the environmental sounds around you. Emergency notifications, it comes pretty standard now with phones. I remember when weather radios were all the rave, for people that were deaf or hard of hearing, but nowadays we get most of the information, just right on our phone. If you are looking for ways to have access to subtitles, let's say you're going to the drive-in movie, and this is where I've used this. The drive-in movie doesn't have captioning. Well, not yet. Where I live, there's an app that will pull subtitles from the internet, and I can watch it on my iPad while I watch the movie with my family. There are also apps that work with advocacy. Again, I'm sorry, I have to cough. I'm sorry that I can't go into in depth into some of these apps just because of time, but definitely check out some of the apps that are on there. This one is a game called Self-Advocacy by a company called Rule the School, and it's a board game where you would do things like, okay, roll the die, okay, pick up the card, oh, you forgot to give your microphone to your teacher, go back 3 squares. Things like that. So all of the different scenarios are based for students, and what kind of challenges they might come up. So here is that section where I was talking about things being a little bit gimmicky. So my friend, who is also an audiologist with bilateral cochlear implants, did a study, which is down here below, where he looked at a whole bunch of these amplifier apps. And did you know that some of them exceeded 130 decibels? That's huge. That's like past the threshold of pain. And so, unfortunately, these apps got through the vetting of the Apple Store and they went to market, but they're not safe. And so Sam had 4 that met the criteria for being safe, and I went ahead and listed them here. For those of you that are working maybe on, advocacy skills and you want a great diagram of the ear, there are some apps under the audiology section that has really great diagrams. Probably one of my most favorite apps right now is this one from Oticon. It's called Oticon Professionals, and it has a great built-in hearing loss simulation. Okay, I see that I'm talking quickly, and I know because I still have a few slides and I'm running out of time. So this app, you can enter in an audiogram and it will play a sound simulation of that hearing loss. This is very helpful in a school setting when you are able to, when you can show this to the teacher or even to the parent. There are also sound simulations of hearing aid use, what it's like to hear with an FM system, and what it's like when you're listening in noise. So this is really, really a great app that's also free. It's rather large at about 0.75 gigabytes. So just make sure you have enough room on your device, on your iPad. I work a lot with cochlear implants, but there's a lot of different processors out there. And what's great is that all of the manufacturers have these apps that have troubleshooting tips on there. So if you can't remember how to change a program or what the different blinking lights mean, there's actually apps that you can download to your phone that can help you through that. This doesn't pertain so much to our little ones because they're not really using a lot of these made for iPhone hearing aids with little kids, but I wanted to make sure that you knew that this is definitely something that we are seeing in adults. If you work with teenagers, you may see some of the teenagers do this, and so this is the kind of information that you might see. So they have a hearing aid that talks to their iPhone, they can change settings, things like that. I also provided you with just the iTunes web, the web page for all of the different manufacturers for hearing aids, as well as for cochlear implants. Okay. There are classroom tools that I also shared. So, like sharing your screen. One thing that's really popular now, a lot of my teachers are using, is instead of doing physical pen and paper and kind of wasting paper, is that they are uploading PDFs to their iPad, and then there are apps where you can actually draw on the PDFs and save them and email them or what you need. If you want to make a social story, there's a bunch of apps there. Like we made a social story of what happens when you have a hearing evaluation. If you need to play Flash on your iPad, in the past it was incompatible, but this particular app is an app called Puffin, P-U-F-F-I-N, and it allows you to play Flash on there. Okay. Another thing that's kind of gimmicky is that there are hearing tests that you can find in the iTunes store. Some of them will be like, how old are your ears, and how loud or how quiet a sound can you hear? And my advice for you as an audiologist is if you have concerns, please see an audiologist. Okay. This is by far the biggest section of this list, and it is the category for listening therapy. And there are just about every possible skill that you would want to work on, you can find in this category. A lot of these apps can be done in quiet or noise. Many of them have data tracking built in, so I encourage you to really look at this list and see if there's something that you can use with your students. If you're working with older students, or for you adults out there, there's a lot of really great apps that I know my friends use on their commute to work when they're on the train. Okay. Media players, I mean, back when I first started this presentation, not every media player had closed captioning, but nowadays that is definitely more the case. It's very rare actually to find some kind of media player that does not have closed captioning. So even things like the Khan Academy, where you can get tutored on different areas, can be found there. I don't know about you guys, but I like to listen to music, and I know my students do also. There are apps that are out there that will play the lyrics with the music, and so for those of you out there that know me well, you know I'm a Hamilton addict. Well, there's a lot of rap that happens in Hamilton, and so I really appreciate apps that will play the music in sync with the lyrics. So definitely check that out. There are also apps that can also listen to music and tell you all of these different things, which is very helpful for, like, if I want to hear music that my daughter's listening to. Think of your students that want to listen to the same music as their peers. So these kind of apps are very, very helpful. If you want to learn sign language, there are numerous apps that are out there not only teaching you sign language, but there are also apps that have lots of story signing. My favorite app for learning sign language is called My Smart Hands, and I like it because they use video clips. The person that's signing actually describes how to make the sign. And then there's also a quiz mode so that you can actually test your receptive knowledge. So I find this to be very family friendly. Again, sound level meters can be gimmicky, but they can also be very powerful. When you go to the category section for sound level meters, I will indicate which ones can be calibrated. And by calibrated, what that means is I took my device, I went into my soundproof booth because I'm an audiologist, I played a signal, and I looked at my device, and if it was accurate or non-accurate, I would adjust it as much as I could and try to calibrate it. So again, some of them can be gimmicky. The last section is something called Telecommunications. So these are for things like your caption telephone apps on your mobile phone. My favorite is InnoCaption. I like the fact that they use a live cart writer. I find it to be very quick and very accurate. If you use sign language and use video relay, there are multiple apps available for that too. My favorite happens to be the Z platform. So I'm going to leave you with some resources. So in addition to my app list, I also have a social bookmarking site. For those of you that have heard me talk before, this social bookmarking site is different than the one that I had before because the other one kind of went out of business, so this is my new one. So for all of the links and websites that I've been saving over the years, lots and lots of years, I have over 1,000 websites saved to this page where you can also see things by category. So if you want to see apps on captioning in the movie theaters, click on captioning and then movie theaters, and you will see all of the links that I've saved. For those of you that are teachers or like to look up activities that you can either print or put on your iPad, Teachers Pay Teachers has a lot of really great ideas. And with that, that was my second to last slide. This is my last slide. Let me see what the question is. Kristen, my daughter takes out her hearing aid when wearing headphones because she said the hearing aid has feedback noise when she wears headphones. Do you have a specific headphone that you recommend that might help with this issue? So Kristen, when I was talking about that cupped style, that may help. The other thing you want to make sure of is that when your daughter is wearing her headphones, she has the cups in the right place. So for those of us that have hearing aids or implants, many of us have to actually wear it up here. When we wear it over our ears, that cup covers the microphone, and that can cause squealing. It depends also on how much, like how much hearing loss she has. If she has like a moderate severe to severe hearing loss, you may want to investigate going to an amplified neck loop that works with a T-coil, because then the feedback will not be an issue. Okay, did that help answer your question?
That was a good question.
Okay. Yeah. The other thing that you might also try is switching to the Telecoil program on her hearing aids. A lot of people don't know this, but even with regular headphones that hearing people can use, if you switch to the Telecoil program, sometimes you can get enough of the signal through the headphones that you can hear and there's no feedback. You may need to increase the volume on what you're listening to or turn up the volume on your hearing aid, but that's another trick that I've learned. Oh, you're welcome. Okay, another question. I have many unused apps and downloaded, but I got a message on the phone in Android that advises not to delete them because it may change the function of the phone. I did not talk about that, but yes, there are definitely apps that are free and there are some that cost. If you delete any app from your physical phone, it will always be in your store, whether it's in your iTunes store or if you have an Android in your Google Play store, and you can re-download that at any time. But a lot of people take it off their phone because they don't use it and they don't want to clutter up their screen, or it's taking up memory. So those are the common reasons you would take an app off your physical phone.
So Tina, she's not in any danger of having the phone not work properly for what she wants to use it for if she takes an app off or deletes an app?
I've never heard of that. I would think that any app that would disrupt the functionality of the phone would not be an app that anybody could just delete. Some of those things are just kind of set and you can't change it even if you wanted to. Does that answer your question, Nancy?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So Sue, that question or that app where you can input the kid's audiogram is called Oticon, O-T-I-C-O-N Professionals. And it's definitely highlighted on my app list. Okay, so the question, does the presentation apply to PCs and Androids as well? No, because they're kind of different beasts. The PC stuff, definitely not, because there's so many computers where it's not, you can't touch them. In terms of Androids, Androids are a little bit different in terms of finding where the accessibility is, but they both have accessibility features. There are not as many apps on my Android list yet, only because I just kind of started it. There's definitely a lot more apps on the iPad store, and sometimes there's apps on Android but not on Apple, or on Apple and not on Android. But I mean, the general things like searching for an app or things like that, yes, a lot of that stuff can apply to either platform. Any other questions?
Okay, there's one about the cables. Jay said you spoke about the cheap cables, but I don't remember anything being said about the chargers. I'd like to offer some simple information and advice for viewers. Many of them are also cheap quality, especially the ones that plug in the wall.
Right, and
So what?
Yeah, I would say anything that costs maybe like $5 or less, definitely kind of steer clear from those. You know, I know that sometimes people will use them in an emergency. That's great, but do not make that your primary charger cable or your primary charger plug. There's just too many unknowns when it's that cheap.
Right, and I guess it's probably a good rule of thumb. The charger or the accessory that you're using should be kind of like, if it's an Apple, it should be Apple approved or something, right?
And they're usually, if the acronym is OEM, and I can't remember what it stands for, but it's like OE manufacturer. I can't remember.
Original equipment manufacturer.
Thank you. That's it.
One other person asked about the PowerPoint. We are at 9 o'clock, so I'm going to cut off there, but we will place the recording of Tina's webinar on our website on the replay page within webinars. And the PDF of her slides will also be available there, so you can go back and look at the app list and so forth. And then just on another note, I'm taking off in August, so there will be no webinar next month. And then when we resume in September, it will be on a new platform, one that's easier for people to get into and a little bit more versatile in terms of the technology. And I'm hoping to get Tina back in the fall, and on our new platform, she'll be able to actually show you how some of these apps work. So that's our goal. And I want to thank Daryl for providing captions once again from Alternative Communication Services. Tina, thank you so much. This was jam-packed with great information, and I know I'm looking forward to going back and looking at the slides a little more carefully. But thank you very much again.
You're
really
welcome. And everyone, I want to let you know also on the handouts is my email address. Please feel free to email me if you have any questions. I try to answer them as quickly as I can. I know that I have to speak pretty quickly to get through this information, and I appreciate you guys hanging in there with me.
All right. Thanks again, Tina, and thanks again, Daryl. Good night, everybody.
Good night.